Alrighty, happy Friday, guys. We got another college football game tonight, Ohio State, Texas. Jack, you're with me. What's up, man? First, though, we're going to do Notre Dame, Penn State from last night because there's ways to lose, and then there's really tough ways to lose. Quarterback for Penn State, Drew Aller, pulled a kind of reminded me of Jordan Love's interception last year against the Niners.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I drew many parallels to that as well. Got to there and just couldn't get it done.
Really tough because he played well. You can go back and you can say the running back, obviously should have caught the ball in the second quarter, which would have given him a touchdown. So they had to settle for a field goal. There's about 50 plays you can do that in every game, especially when it's a 3-point game. But it comes down to the very, very end. Riley Leonard's easy to root for if you're a Notre Dame fan. Easy to hate if you're rooting against them because he just finds a way to get it done. And he wasn't great, but he got it done. So what was your overall take? If they played again, do you think the same thing would happen? More Notre Dame won, Penn State lost. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good game overall. Definitely some turnovers. Not really a pretty game from either team. Running the ball, they were both pretty effective. Again, that Aller pick I come back to over and over again, just trying to do too much. Yeah. And, I mean, yeah, I'm not a huge Riley Leonard fan. I'm not a huge Notre Dame fan in general. I think their fan base is kind of a joke. It's a bunch of guys that didn't actually go to Notre Dame and just decided to start rooting for them. So don't have a lot of respect for the program in general. So maybe I'm a little biased, but yeah, I will say what I will say is I do think the better team won.
Yeah, I'll say Tyler Warren is definitely a first-round pick. I mean, he was fantastic. He seemed like the best player on the field for Penn State, the tight end. Penn State's defensive line did a really good job. Jeremiah Love runs really hard. I mean, that one touchdown he had was extremely impressive, but Penn State did a good job on him. The Great House guy, is that his name? He came out of nowhere, the receiver for Notre Dame, making big catch after big catch. I came away from the game thinking Notre Dame might be able to hang with Ohio State. I'm already got Ohio State beating Texas tonight. We'll get to that in a second. But, yeah, I think the final takeaway from the Notre Dame-Penn State game is, Notre Dame is just, super steady. They essentially did to Penn State what they've done to everybody this entire year besides somehow Northern Illinois, which was just beat them, let them make the turnovers, let them beat themselves. Notre Dame's not going to go down as the greatest team ever, but it seems hard to blow them out. But, all right, we can recap that game another time. There's a lot to unpack as far as getting ready for the NFL draft, but let's make some money tonight. All right, tell me how Texas is going to figure this out because you're not going to tell me Texas is going to win this game, are you?
I mean, we'll see. I think they do have a chance.
Really?
There's a few things behind my reasoning. Ohio State, I feel like, is a very volatile team. So they have been hot recently, but they've played teams that I would argue aren't as talented. Now, that might be a little bit of a hot take when it comes to Oregon, but I think across the board, Ohio State is a more talented team. And Oregon hadn't really faced much of a fight. I mean, their biggest fight was against Ohio State at home during the regular season, and they won because of Will Howard brain fart, realistically. So I think that game was kind of a game you could see Ohio State coming in and winning pretty handily. Texas, on the other hand, has the physicality. They have the guys to keep this close. And I keep coming back to when it comes to betting, a lot of the important stuff is where the line is, how it's moving, and where the money is. And on this game is one of the most lopsided money sides that I've seen in a very long time. It's looking like in between 85 and 95% of the money is on the spread and the money line all in favor of Ohio State. And so that's a big tell for me. And in games like that, you usually see those kind of 50-50 calls, those 50-50 balls go in favor of the team that favors the book. And so with that, I will be taking Texas. I'm going to either take 7 or 7.5, depending on what the line is, but I'm going to buy a point up to a touchdown.
So normally my antennas go up when you say something like that, right? Because I'm like, I hate looking at where money's going and where line movement's going because I think it's really, really difficult. I've talked about that before to understand why it's moving or what's happening. But there are some situations where from the very beginning, from the very beginning to the very end, the line, they can't get 50-50 action. And I don't think in this game they could get 50-50 action no matter what they did. And so, yes, I do buy more into the idea that everyone's on Ohio State. It wouldn't shock me to to think that everything you're saying is accurate. I usually don't even want to pay attention to it, but in this particular game, the reason why I say that is because Ohio State has looked so good. They looked so good. They've won by so many points that I thought the line would be 8.5. So when it comes to 6, right, and you're like, okay, but I can't find anybody that can say anything besides what you just said, right? Which is like, on paper, Texas could hang with them. So if you think that, it's like, well, why won't the line just keep moving up? And the reality is it's just going to stay right there. It might go up to 6.5 or 7, but they set the line this way. They must think that if it jumped higher than 7, they would get too much action on Texas. Sometimes they read it wrong. Either way, I don't put too much stock into the line movement. But in this game, I am more looking at like, well, how can Texas win? Because why isn't the spread? Maybe sometimes the eye test isn't good enough. And you've alluded to something, which is like, all right, Oregon's not as talented as Texas. I think they have the speed that Texas has. So elaborate more about what you mean. Is it more upfront? Like, what is Texas going to be able to do to Ohio State's offense that we haven't seen Tennessee or Oregon be able to do?
Yeah. So biggest thing that I'm looking at here is look at Ohio State's most recent loss. They lost to a Michigan team that was completely incapable of moving the ball through the air. And Texas has a very good run game, and they also have a quarterback, Arch Manning, who's mobile, and I expect him to be featured a lot tonight.
Really?
I do. I think there will be some packages where he's running the ball because Michigan was able to find success with Orgy, and I think they had Davis Warren in there too on kind of quarterback runs and kind of like some short throw RPOs or some read options, like that kind of stuff. And with Arch in the fold and being very mobile and also able to move the ball down the field, I think that gives Texas a little bit of a different wrinkle. I mean, Nico, not really mobile. Dylan Gabriel, not really mobile. And you saw that Ohio State was able to get there with their pass rush, and they were able to like make those guys uncomfortable in the pocket, and they were making bad throws. And Ohio State has a very good secondary and is very good on the back end.
So you think Texas is going to try to control the ball, run it up? Is that? I mean, the number that blows my mind, talk about line movement, is it was at 53. Now it's at 51.5. The over under. It primarily because if Ohio State's going to blow them out, they're going to beat them 27. Like, Texas is not going to try to throw the ball in the air. They don't really trust throwing the ball down the field. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I think that the game script favors them better if they try to run the ball effectively. I think, again, going back to that Michigan game, Ohio State's very much been a Jekyll and Hyde team this year, and that Michigan game really highlights that because they looked atrocious. They looked like a middle-of-the-pack Northwestern 6-6 Big Ten team in that game, and then they've looked like the best team in the country since. So not really sure. I also think Texas has more of a chip on their shoulder than Ohio State does, and that's something to factor in. These players are basically being told that they've already lost. Ohio State's being crowned the national champion. That gets in your head as a player. 100% gets in your head as a player. When everybody's telling you you're that good, it's pretty easy to kind of take your foot off the gas and be like, oh, well, we're expected to win. We don't need to prepare as hard. And Texas is on the other side of the ball where they have a chip on their shoulder and everyone's telling them they can't do it.
Where do you – both coaches, I would say hot and cold fan bases get frustrated. Sarkisian's probably more well-liked down in Texas. I don't really have too much of a read on him. I have more of a read on Ohio State with Ryan Day and Chip Kelly. I feel like they're running a fantastic offense. I feel like Chip Kelly is just on one. I don't see Texas slowing them down. I know Sarkisian's more of an offensive guy. Talk to me about Texas and Sarkisian and his coaching staff and how and where you see the advantage.
Yeah, I personally like Sarkisian better than Ryan Day. I've been a solid believer in Sarkisian for a couple of years. I think he's kind of gotten a bad rap in the past. He finally got settled in Texas. And I probably disagree with you a little bit. I think they really do like him down there. This is the most success that they've had since Colt McCoy got hurt and Garrett Gilbert came in that national championship against Bama. Like, this team has not been in this spot until Sarkisian came, and he took him to the playoff last year. And he did the same this year. They are very happy with him down there in Austin. And I personally think he's a better coach. I think he has better experience. And Ryan Day just makes bonehead decisions sometimes in game. And I think there's a very good chance that happens again tonight.
Really? So you really think? So you like the 6? So you said you'd prefer to have it at 7.5, even if you got to pay the extra juice. What are you
Yeah.
willing to pay? Like minus 150, 160 ish?
Ideally less than that. I'm hoping for like minus 135, minus 140 at 7.5. I'm going to do some shopping closer to game time to make sure that I can get that number. If not, then I'll just buy a half a point to 7.
Are there any particular props, any particular offensive players for Texas? I know you think they're going to run the football and try to win this game.
Arch Manning, I'm keying in on. I'm going to see if I can find some value. I would love to see if I can find value on him to score a touchdown. I mean, again, it comes down to what state you're in and like where you do your betting. Obviously, there are certain offshore books that will offer those lines in states where it is not sanctioned or legal. But like for example, in Colorado, you cannot bet player props in college. So that comes down to that. But Arch Manning is one that I really have my eyes on.
Why are you like sure that he's going to play like a lot tonight?
I like just from a scheme standpoint, I feel like that they're going to have to utilize him because again, the issue with Tennessee and Oregon is neither of those quarterbacks are mobile. Dylan Gabriel is not mobile. Dylan Gabriel like can move out of the pocket a little bit, and then the defensive tackle chase him down for a sack. Like
they just haven't featured him.
You need Arch in there in certain packages, and you need Ewers to like play his role.
I'm just looking up his stats real quick because I'm trying to see how many snaps. They didn't give him any snaps at all last week against Arizona State.
Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, that was a weird game in general.
They didn't really. I guess your take on that would be Texas was already winning.
Didn't need to. And I mean, yeah, exactly. And like again, Texas has more talent top to bottom than Arizona State does.
So overall, and on the Ohio State side of it, you think they're just going to struggle offensively? Like besides some of the off the field stuff you've touched on, the intangibles, line movement, from a defensive X's and O's standpoint, what can Texas's defensive front do that would be different than Oregon and Tennessee?
Yeah, just get into the passer. Howard's making decisions. He's making quick decisions. You need to make him uncomfortable because at the end of the day, he is probably the liability on that offense, I would say. Their running backs are unbelievable. The receivers are unbelievable. O-line's unbelievable. Howard is the soft spot. And so if you can make him uncomfortable, that's the way to beat them.
Got it. So, all right, we'll put your bets out. This game's going to start whenever. These halftimes are unbelievable. The game, like, it's so different than the NFL game. Like, all of a sudden, halftime takes forever. So the game's at 7:30. It'll end when it ends. If you had the under last night in the Notre Dame-Penn State game, that's a brutal loss. 31 points in the fourth quarter. I do like the under. The more I think about it, listening to you, I do think Texas is going to run the ball a lot. I think Oregon's mindset was we can outscore Ohio State. I don't know what Tennessee's mindset was, but Texas's mindset is not going to be to outscore Ohio State. They're going to try to win this game 17-10, play defensive football, let their pass rush do their thing. So we'll see. All right, let's do I want to do every game but the Ravens. I'm going to do the Ravens tomorrow and dive. That'll be my pod. I'm doing Ravens and Orioles tomorrow. I put off this Corbin Burns nonsense for a week. I've tried to see how things play out. We signed a reliever this afternoon. Guess we're getting the 35 and older club, or yesterday afternoon, I should say. Kittredge or whatever from the Cardinals. He actually used to play Cardinals, and then anyway. So he was at the Rays before that. Can't hurt, but it's not core. Hey, what am I doing? We'll do that tomorrow. Orioles, Ravens tomorrow. I want to do the rest of the games, and we'll do the Bills and the Broncos at the end, since that's I'll let you make your case for Denver. So let's start with the Chargers and the Texans. I feel like they're mirrors of each other. That's like the easiest take, right? Like both teams love their quarterback. Both teams play defensive football. No? What do you how do you see the game then?
Chargers are better coached and have a better quarterback, in my opinion.
Really?
The Chargers remind me a lot of Notre Dame in that way, not schematically, but just in general. Good coach, not going to lose the game. Herbert is not going to lose you the football game, and neither is Harbaugh. And I think people really forget how good of a coach Jim Harbaugh is. And so they will have an advantage on that front. They'll have an advantage at quarterback. In terms of skill players, I think the Texans kind of have it there. And then defensively, I really like that Chargers defense. Derwin James on the back end is a stud. He's arguably the best safety in the NFL. So I like the Chargers here.
You sounds like you like Chargers beat the Chiefs next week. That's where you're headed.
Honestly, I mean that's a conversation for next week if they can make it through. But I'm slowly convincing myself that this is a first round exit for the Chiefs.
So the Texans always play Saturday
At 2:20, yeah, or
2:20 for you, right?
My time, yeah, 4:20 your time, yeah.
Yeah, like they always get the Saturday game back in the J.J. Watt days. This Texans team is really like a disappointment. There's no other way to say it. They won the worst division by default. Colts tried to lose. Literally, Jonathan Taylor handed you guys a nice little early Christmas gift. Jacksonville and Tennessee are running incompetent franchises. So the Texans
putting that, yes.
So the Texans, right? So the Texans are there, but they're still, like you said, you touched on their skill players. They're still very talented. I'm favoring the Texans because they're home, and I just don't. I like the pass rush. I actually like Texans defense a little bit more than the Chargers. So are you thinking that it's a 50-50 game and you like the Chargers, or are you thinking more like super confident Chargers are going to roll them?
I'm very confident in the Chargers. Not roll them, but again, like it comes down to it at the end of the game. I like the Chargers. They're better coached and they have a better quarterback.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. You're on the record for that. I don't feel super strongly. I'll think about it a little bit more tomorrow. Stroud, betting against Stroud won't do that. I definitely won't take the Chargers. I think you're a little giving Harbaugh a little bit more credit over D'Amico. I think Texans defense, I like the under in that game the more I think about it. But again, I don't like betting unders with CJ Stroud. So if anything, your overconfidence might be pushing me more towards the Texans because I do think more people like the Chargers. All right, let's go to Sunday afternoon. Eagles are going to play the Packers. It feels like the Packers are in the same spot that they were last year. If you remember, they were the 7th seed, headed to Dallas. Dallas was pretty much everybody's favorite last year, and the Packers smacked them.
Oh, yeah, they boat raced them. Yeah, it wasn't even close. That game was over in the first half, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think the final score wasn't indicative of
44-16 or something. Yeah, and it could have been 60-10. Yeah.
So that was on the road. Certainly, Dallas is not Philly. Philly's crowd, it's hard to see the Packers beating them by 30. But nobody really wants to take the Packers. Jordan Love's banged up. He's going to play, but he hurt his hand at the very end. How do you see it playing out? Start with when the Packers have the ball. Matched up against this Phillies deep. Philly's got the best defense in the NFC, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. The Georgia Bulldog defense, obviously, they got like 6 or 7 guys that rotate in and out, which is pretty cool. I don't know. I go back and forth on this one because the Packers always have some devil magic that LaFleur comes out with. But, no Christian Watson. Their receiving core is just, super weird. It's like they have 4 number 2 guys. It's so bizarre, like fringe number 2 guys in their receiving core. You got Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, I'm pretty sure is there too, and then Watson, obviously. But, I'm just not impressed. And so really you just have to sell out to stop Jacobs, and then they can win this game. And Philly's phenomenal at stopping the run. So I'm trying to convince myself to try to take the Packers, but I just don't think I can. The Eagles are too good.
I do think it comes down to Josh Jacobs. The reason why part of me likes the Packers is because they're underdog to be able to run the football. And if they overcome that and you see in those first couple of drives, it'll remind me of the Boise State game where if you watch those first couple of drives, you could be like, uh-oh, they didn't get a push up front. Remember we talked about that? Where it's like if they don't get a push up front, ironically in that game, the quarterback Madsen was making plays, and Genty, he was the liability came to be. I know his numbers weren't terrible, but he was.
Yeah, well, and when we talked about that in the pod, it was kind of that same idea. It was like this team needs to get out to a hot start, or they're not going to have a chance. And so, same idea. And realistically, when you're selling out against the run, as everybody had against Boise State all year. 7 and 8 man boxes against just as good or better opponents is going to hurt you. And that's kind of what we're going to see here in this Eagles game because that front 7 for Philly is unbelievable. And so those guys are going to eat all day. And it's not really like on Jacob's head, just like it wasn't really on Genty's head. He just didn't have any room to operate. And so if we see that, this could easily become like a 28-3, 28-10 game.
So it was very close last time they played in Brazil. That game probably doesn't count. Both teams were slipping. The field wasn't great. Eagles found a way to win the game, but it was like somewhat of a throwaway, I would say. All right, so you like the Eagles pretty much?
Yeah, might stay away there. Again, Matt LaFleur has devil magic. You never know what's going to happen. There's always some weird shit that happens with them, and so like I don't know. I'm leaning Eagles though as we speak.
Yeah, when Philly has the ball, it'll be curious to see what they can do. The Packers aren't the greatest defense in the world. You would think Barkley should get going, so we'll see about that one. And the night game, the Commanders and the Bucks. So the Bucks destroyed the Commanders the first week of the season. I think that was somewhat predictable as a rookie quarterback going to Tampa. Now the Commanders go back to Tampa. It's interesting because I really like Tampa, but I was surprised that the line was only 3. I'm surprised to just hear a lot of people I respect taking Washington. The belief is that the Buccaneers are going to have a hard time stopping Daniels. I don't really see it that way. I like the Bucks. Where are you at?
Yeah, I do. I'm leaning the Bucks too. Baker is firing on all cylinders, and I'm one of the biggest Baker Mayfield fans out there. And I really like what he does. I have my eyes set on his passing yard total because I feel like they're just going to air it out all day. A lot of Bucky Irving's yards come out of like screen passes and shovel passes and the like. So really like Baker's line there. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I like the over on that just because even if they're down, they're going to be slinging it, and even if they're up, they're going to be slinging it. So like that, like the Bucks at home, tough place to play. Jane Daniels' first home or first playoff game. Like you never really know when it comes to those rookies, and so I'm gonna lean Baker, the guy with the experience and good coach in bowls.
Yeah, I feel like Dan Quinn will try to draw something up. Maybe old Baker, I'd be nervous, but he's just been so good in key moments that it's hard to see them losing this game. I like the Bucks. I also like the Rams over the Vikings. The fact they're moving the game, and these fires are unbelievable. I mean, it's just
it's really sad. It very much is. I'm a little bit conflicted on that game as well. Rams are the team nobody wants to play. It's been said over and over and over again. But the Vikings are good, and they definitely have a chip on their shoulder after the game against the Lions last week. So that was like arguably going to be the game of the year. First time ever 2 teams in the regular season are playing each other with 2 losses only. So
yeah,
last week of the season, that is. So pretty crazy on that front. But I kind of like the Vikings there.
The Rams did beat the Vikings. I think the Vikings were 5-1 on a Thursday night. The Rams were 2-4. They had to win that game. They did win that game. Everything the Vikings do well, the Rams and the Lions are very similar. So when I thought about last week, I liked the Lions, but then I was like, man, the Vikings secondary is really good. And I just thought the Vikings were good enough on defense last week to win. It was the Sam Darnold situation. Can't put money on Sam Darnold in the playoffs. They got to see it at least once. I like the Rams a lot. I think it's a great matchup for the Rams. I think the Rams would have struggled against the Packers. I think that would have been not the matchup they wanted, a team that could potentially score with them. Getting a team like the Vikings, I think the Vikings are going to struggle. I think it's over for them. I think they need the win last week. So I'm with the Rams. But all right, let's do your Bills Broncos. Floor is yours. No one's picking the Broncos to win. If you don't pick them to win, then I guess I can officially say nobody I know have listened to is actually picking them to win. So go for it.
Yeah, my main logic with that. The Bills are unbelievable, well coached. Got Josh Allen up there. Got a great pass rush on defense. They're really executing in their pass game too. And tight ends have kind of been a liability for us all year. And so having Kincaid and Knox in there, I expect both of them to have very solid games. In terms of the Broncos, we beat them last year in Buffalo with Russell Wilson. So. I'm saying
Monday night football, right?
Monday night game. Yeah, that was a pretty crazy game. Lutz missed. Bills had 12 guys on the field, got to re-kick, made it to ice the game. And that's one of those things where I'm like, we beat them with that roster. We can definitely beat them with this roster. They're just as good as they were last year, I would argue. And I have belief. I'm probably going to take them at +10 to cover. I don't know if they can get it done, but if the defense really balls out and has the game of their lives, then this is definitely something that comes down to the end.
So The one thing I want to give the Broncos, like, all right, the pass rush is there. That's what they do really well. The Bills, just Josh Allen has not gotten sacked very much. What's the confidence level that you guys can get the pass rush and get to him?
Yeah, it's kind of mano-a-mano. It's strength versus strength. I mean, we got Jonathan Cooper and Nick Benito on each side with 10 plus sacks. Zach Allen, Pro Bowl snub. He's got 7 or 8 or something at that kind of D tackle, nose tackle position in the middle. Like, if our pass rush can get home, this game is going to be great. If we can't get home, then Allen's just going to dice us and scramble, and he's going to have 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns, 59 million fantasy points, and it's going to be ugly. So it really just comes down to can Benito and Jonathan Cooper get home.
And then Surtain, does he match up specifically on somebody for Denver, or because Buffalo doesn't really?
Buffalo doesn't have a number one. I mean, you got Shakir, I guess. I don't, but he doesn't really shadow. He shadowed Chase a little bit in that Bengals game, and he completely shut him down. Like, he's kind of like prime Nnamdi Asomugha, if you remember that guy. For the Raiders, where you wouldn't hear anything from him because they wouldn't throw the ball his way. And so that's kind of the season Surtain's had this year. They're averaging like 2 or 3 targets a game to his side of the field. So he's just going to kind of do that, kind of shut down half the field, not going to shadow anybody. I've got a lot of faith in him. Riley Moss will be back, which is huge for us. So, again, just really worried about the tight ends and these kind of swing passes they throw to James Cook. And then, obviously, Allen creating outside the pocket.
And then how does Buffalo get to defend Bo Nix? Like, what's Denver's strategy? To me, if Denver's on 3rd and 3, they're great. That's what happened in that stupid Chargers game on Thursday night. They were so good in the first half, those first couple of possessions. And then the second half, 3rd and 7, and Bo Nix doesn't have the arm strength on 3rd and 7 to make some of those throws. Is that your read on it? Like, if they get to 3rd and 3, they're fine. 3rd and 7, they're screwed.
I would disagree on the arm strength part. I don't know if you watched that Browns game, but that throw to Mims was the longest throw in terms of air yards this year. It's like 68 yards. So the arm strength is there. The accuracy on those longer throws is not. So he's got a gun. But in terms of like those like 20-yard, 30-yard throws,
not necessarily
accuracy just isn't dialed in yet.
No, not necessarily those. The more like the 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 feels like maybe it's the accuracy, maybe it's not reading the defense, but they just could not get a first down against the Chargers. And
definitely.
And the Colts game too, because I was rooting for the Colts. That first half, they just same thing. It's like in the second half, once he starts rolling, yeah, he's a good front runner. Things are going well. They kind of hurry it up a little bit. They have feels like 35 different running backs. And so, like, you don't know who to prepare for. But if it's 3rd and 7, where do they even go on 3rd and 7?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the problem with not having a go-to guy, which I'm a little bit upset. I mean, T. Higgins is really the only option in free agency next year. I mean, you could call Amari Cooper that, but we don't really have – like, Sutton's had a great year, but we don't have a go-to guy, a guy to go look for on 3rd and 7. And so it's, again, getting ahead of the sticks, making sure our play call's dialed in 1st and 2nd down. I do completely agree with you, though. We've struggled on 3rd down a lot this year, and I think the stats will back that up.
So you don't love Denver because you're giving yourself 10 points. You got 5 points to get all the way up to 10, basically.
Yeah, I think if it was 9.5 this morning when I looked on ESPN Bet. So might have moved from now. I would probably buy a half to 10. A lot of value there. I think it's going to be a very, very entertaining game. But yes, I mean, if we're looking at a key focal point, it is those edge guys, Benito and Jonathan Cooper, have to get home, have to have a game, make Allen uncomfortable.
Got it. All right, I'm going to do the Ravens tomorrow, give all my takes on it, get all my bets out, because I'm actually going to do some Raven prop bets, more so defensive prop bets. It would be more enjoyable for me to bet unders on the Steelers stuff, because that's what I'm most confident in. But why don't you give me your take on it, and then we'll get out of here. What's Pittsburgh's getting? I think it's all the way up to – I saw 8.5, but I saw some people say they saw 9.5. You think Pittsburgh has a chance?
No.
All right, good. We'll end the pod that way.
Dumpster fire. I mean, that place has gone into shambles. If they're thinking about moving on from Mike Tomlin, there's a lot of things wrong and a lot of players upset. So I think that game's not close.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think they'll move away from
Yeah, I don't either, but that shouldn't even be mentioned. I mean, I would argue he might be the best coach in the NFL. He's definitely up there, especially in terms of like player relations. He's 100% the best coach in the NFL when it comes to that. And so, like the fact that there are discussions being made on radio stations and by publications and journalists and stuff, kind of scrutinizing him, I think that there are going to be a lot of players upset about that, and that whole locker room is kind of discombobulated. You saw the same thing happen with Philly a couple weeks ago, but they quickly patched that up, and now they're firing on all cylinders. Steelers is just too late. Put the fire out, game over, go to Cancun.
All right, I love it. Cool. If you got anything for tonight, specifically for the Texas-Ohio State game, you'll send it our way. I'll get out, anything I got. And then, yeah, that's why I said yesterday, if you like Ohio State, bet them, because now it's minus 150 for them to win the whole thing. So I don't know how I feel about the 6 points tonight. You kind of make me a little nervous with your analysis and talking about it. But I'm going to have to see Ohio State lose before I believe they're going to lose. But enjoy the game, guys. I'll be here in the morning, do Ravens stuff. And, I'll talk to you next week, Jack.